Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who encourages you to watch part one of this series, How Ants From Up There Was Made. I'll put a link to it up there, although I imagine you've already watched it. Maybe it's been a while, so I'll remind you of the basic idea of these videos. The idea was to interview Black Country New Road, to dissect some of the demos they gave me access to, and to treat this album with the seriousness that I think it deserves. I think it's the kind of album that in 10 years, 25 years, we'll be talking about and celebrating its anniversary. So I released that first video as the 1-month anniversary. And this is now the 2-month anniversary of what I believe to be a modern masterpiece. So that's what you have. On this half of the video, we're going to be discussing Concorde and how it was saved by Georgia. We're going to talk about Bread Song and why is it Tyler's favorite. We'll see how Sergio managed to capture Haldern and what Charlie's biggest regret is on Good Will Hunting. Plus, we learn a little bit about LP3, maybe. It's going to be dedicated to grain-based deities. And a couple other dudes involved with the album make a very special cameo at the ending. Throughout the video, I make sort of reference to silly and serious. That's something I talked about in the first part, just as a reminder that this is a way that it seems as though the band thinks of themselves, and the way I think is best to think of them, and even though they're a very serious band who's making a very important piece of art, they're also kind of silly, kind of friends, kind of goofy, and it's that kind of mixture there. Now we're going to be jumping in halfway through the interview. We have just discussed Mark's theme, which is a fairly deep song. I had just mentioned to Sergio that if you look carefully, you'll see he has a box set of Velvet Underground and Nico behind him, much like I have Velvet Underground and Nico behind me, so I sort of laughed about that. And then as we start off this half of the interview, we see him showing off a piece of art by famous musician and outside artist Daniel Johnston. Let's get into it, huh?
Original.
Oh, wow.
Whoa!
Whoa, that's
Yeah,
wow.
that's not. This is not a print. That's actually him.
No.
Wow.
More importantly, Serge, have you got pajamas on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry, but my boyfriend's just made me dinner, so I'm gonna
great.
go.
I can't believe you're all talking to me for so long, so if you need to go, I totally understand.
No, I'm really sorry to leave. It's nice to meet you. Thank you so
What's
much.
he made?
Thank you,
What's he
man.
made?
What's he
He's
made for
made
you?
some burritos.
Oh,
All right.
Bye.
Tell him to come back
Bye.
soon.
I will. Bye. Sorry. Bye.
Okay, so now we can finally get back to Concorde. Okay, so this is the thing, because I know that you didn't write the lyrics, and so I'm not going to ask you questions about the lyrics, but was there ever a discussion of naming the album Concorde?
I think maybe very, very briefly, but I don't think any of us wanted. I don't think it made sense at all.
We never want to, well, so far we've never wanted to name the album after one of the tracks because it draws too much focus to one of the tracks, and that just wouldn't make sense, especially because this is a concept album. It's all one narrative that takes place in one realm.
Right.
So if you pin one point as being the most important, that's just wrong. That's just not the case.
But certainly when I'm looking at all the outtakes, I think that's the song that I heard the most different takes of, lots of different versions, sort of like the strings doing different things at different parts. Like at times the piano seems to be louder, at times it seems to be quieter. The way the singing is delivered, I mean, at one point, can't you tell, the sort of essential line from the entire song was,
and I heard you're on Atkins as well. I was made to love you. Can't you tell? And you
how did you feel the journey of Concorde was to the final version?
It never kind of felt like it was like finished. I don't know, like we had so many discussions about like the shape of the track and like how it was kind of like how it was meant to sound. And because it's also like it's verse, chorus, like, like it's a pretty simple structure and it has the same chord sequence that runs the whole way through.
I remember really liking it and being like, yeah, this is cool. This is cool. And we were writing it. And then Georgia having the most stiff face on. I was like, what's wrong? What's wrong with it? It's quite good. And she was like, don't know. Nah, really not feeling it. And I was like, why? And she was like, don't know, not feeling it. And I was like, damn, this is a banger. And then I remember we came back the next week and she was like, I know what it needs to be done. I know why I don't like it. I don't know what needs to be done. And she was like, it's because the chords are the same, it becomes really repetitive. We're just going up loud, and then chorus loud, and then down loud, all of that. And so we were like, okay, let's create some kind of through line. Make an overall. So there's like two different shapes. There's like you've got these little waves that are going in that get louder at the end of the sections, and then over the whole thing you've got this steady rise, and until you get to that outro bit, the big loud bit. And we kind of got that from like the kind of fiddling. We achieved that with Georgia fiddling around on the mandolin. Slowly developing what she was playing.
I'm so excited to share some demos with you now. So it's been very interesting listening to the band try to figure out like why was Concorde hard to make. Part of the reason is that it's a simple song with one chord progression, but then also it's trying to find these shapes, as Lewis is explaining. And in particular, I think what we're trying to figure out is a lot about like the dynamics of the song, the loud and the soft of the song, and how Georgia's performance on the mandolin is ultimately what saves it, or what makes it. So what I want to do is take one specific moment, the moment in between the verse and the chorus. You know, the chorus, which embodies a lot of that dynamism of the song, you know, the rising sound, like it gets louder, but also just the rising of those horns, right? That kind of rising feeling in sound and in notes. So I want to take this chorus and analyze it across 4 different versions of the song. Each one has Georgia doing something differently with or without the mandolin. So, you know, the first take is going to come from May. That's the May 2022 version. And then I'm going to have 3 takes from the June 14th recording session. What's crazy is they're all different. Now, the thing to remember before you listen to these different versions is the final version. So throughout the song, the mandolin is either, you know, kind of plucked or strummed. And when it's plucked, it's used for single notes, and it adds texture, but it doesn't bring a lot of, like, lots of energy to it. But when it's actually strummed, you know, and has that sound to it, that's what really gives it that added dynamism. So here's what you're going to hear in these back-to-back versions of just the first chorus of Concorde. This sort of the moment where the song starts to really take on some dynamics because it starts off so lugubrious. So the first take, Concorde, in May, you're going to hear no mandolin at all. Then we're going to pass on to the first take from June 14th, where there's no mandolin, the horns are really low, and instead we have Georgia playing violin. Now, violin is featured throughout the rest of the song, as we'll hear soon, but on this first chorus, in this version, the violins take over everything, and they're these descending violin notes, which kind of go against what we consider to be the Concorde chorus. The next take is the second take from June, and that's where you finally hear the mandolin coming in, but she's just trying to find the notes. She's kind of noodling. She's playing individual notes like she would on the final version, but she's not quite there. And then finally, the third version from June 14th, in which she's strumming the mandolin quite vigorously. And what I think you'll see is that this is too soon in the song. It's too early to hit this peak of dynamism. You know, why I loved making this video and doing this work is to get into these details. So let's just listen to Georgia. Let's just listen to what she's doing on the song and how she recognized something needed to be done, and she figured out what to do.
What a funny way to speak. And you like calm. gentle hill racer, I was breathless upon every mountain to look for your light. What a funny way to speak. And you, like Concorde, I came, a gentle hill racer, and I was breathless upon every mountain to look for your light. What a funny way to speak. And you, like Concorde, I came, a gentle hill racer, I was breathless upon every mountain to look for your light.
Playing more and more and more, and leaving out the violin until the very last bit. And when you've got that tremolo violin, there's loads of them stacked on top of each other. As soon as you get that, it's like, whoa, shit, we're here. This is different, and it's like we've grown to this point rather than just being this repetitive thing over and over again. But yeah, I remember being shocked and taken aback by George's reaction, but it was for the best. So I need to go to the door. My pizza's here.
Oh,
Who wants that?
Well, it's funny he talks about the mandolin because there's the third version, I guess, of the June, the time when you recorded it in June. The third version, the mandolin is really high in the mix, and I call it the Italian wedding version because it's just like it's so loud and it's.
Then it's just another texture. So the main idea about in this particular song in Concorde is about how you can hear everything and everything have their own space. Every instrument breathing, coming in and out, but they don't mix. They don't fight against each other. But the only fight that I have with the mandolin is kind of in the middle part when Taylor doing the bass solo. And I didn't want the mandolin in there. I just want the guitar. And I want the mandolin just in the last outro of the bass, just coming to the normal part again. And that was the only thing we have discussed. I couldn't go in my own way. But mandolin supposed to be there. You know, that's a level that should be, you know, before that's kind of trial and error, basically.
If you've seen my videos, you know that instrumental section after the chorus is, I mean, I've given you a lot of compliments, but I mean, that is literally one of my favorite pieces of music just of all time. Just for fun, let's listen to a demo version. Let's listen to the Italian wedding version. That little instrumental break is like, seriously, like I have it in my, like, this kind of thing where it'll be in my head and I'll just be so happy that little bit exists. Is there any kind of story behind how that came? Because I mean, obviously, I don't know. It's just that one section, and on all the demos, it's just as good. It's not like all of a sudden it got good. It's just always been this great moment.
It's pretty kind.
Wait, the instrumental section, you mean the bass bit?
Yeah.
That bit, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of bass going on, a lot of guitar going on, and it's hard to describe how much I like that piece of music.
It started off with just that bit.
Right.
I put a harmony on top, and then everyone was like, "No, don't play the harmony." And then I was like, "Oh, I don't know, I think it sounds kind of good." And then I was like, "How about I just play it second time?" No, like, yeah, cool.
Because the horns totally make it, yeah.
It makes it into a bigger thing, you know. Adds another layer to it.
That same Italian wedding take, with the second time it goes into that instrumental break, listen to how the beautiful horns make it into something bigger.
There's also like the reference right at the end to When the Party's Over by Billie Eilish. The da-da-da-da-da-da-doom, which like brings it back into the
I like it like that, say it like that, da, 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 da.
into like the verse.
That was an accident.
It was, yeah, it was an accident. But then we were like, let's not change that because like that's really cool and like a really nice reference to Billie Eilish. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like love that moment. Like that post-chorus is just like wicked. It was also really fun like to drum over as well, because it was just like it could just have been like a really like straight like beat, but because it's like it's so sort of like syncopated, but there's like a shift from between the chords, like the line goes over the chords and then kind of like spills out of it. The drums kind of also do that, where they don't follow like a completely linear sort of like pattern. You're always sort of wondering where like the emphasis is going to be on the drums, which is actually like where the tambourine sort of like kind of weirdly holds the whole thing together. And like that, Serge, you just suggested doing that, and it just happened.
Isaac.
Oh, was it Isaac?
It was Isaac. Yeah, that was definitely Isaac.
And yeah, I mean, I've always been like super. Sorry, Serge. Sorry.
No, that was absolutely perfect because it's really high on the mix as well.
Yeah.
Now you kind of try to make it, just put it in there just to add stuff. And I think that it gives you that kind of dancey tempo as well, the tambourine. That is absolutely amazing. But that was definitely Isaac's idea.
Yeah. I just have always been like super reticent to like use something like a tambourine, because I always thought it was kind of like a lame, very obvious trope to have like
wings.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I guess like it just worked. And I was like, we did the take, and it was just like one take that we did. Did a bit. And I was like, yeah, and I was like to Serge, like, okay, so that's that. We're gonna like maybe use like a little bit of it somewhere. And then the whole thing just ended up being on there, which was like, yeah, it seemed to work. It was nice.
Yeah, because it's maybe that's why I like it so much, because everybody who's playing is doing something so interesting. Like you said, like you don't know when the snares are going to hit, you don't quite know. It has that little bit of that like staggered effect. And then to me, the horns just make me think of like Sam Cooke or something, like something really like old, like an old soul song that you just like, like you just sort of want to like live inside that moment. And then and the bass as well is like going so well, just the way everything all pans together. So anyways, it's thank you all for recording that piece of music.
Anytime.
Tried very hard.
We've got another 3 or 4 just like that in the pipeline that you're gonna
awesome.
want.
Yeah.
We'll say back in a sec.
Yep. On to the next song. I want to spend one more time comparing the development of the instrumentals and the dynamics of Concorde. So you saw Tyler reference a couple times the bass part. Now, if you know the song, obviously, you know what she's talking about. It's that quiet part before the outro, before the end, where you just hear the bass. Now, in the final version, it's total quiet, and there's just a little bit of bass, and then eventually some nice mandolin comes over it, and it just sets up the ending of the song. We're going to listen to the May demo, where there's like some drums with it. There's obviously no mandolin. We've already established that. There's some guitar playing. There's basically no real space given to this bass line to breathe here. Then we're going to listen to the 3 versions from June. And in those different versions, we're going to hear as eventually there's the mandolin coming. And eventually the mandolin's going to do the kind of trilly mandolin, the kind of strummed mandolin, and then the plucked mandolin that sounds very similar to the final version. So it's just this little quiet moment. If there's one thing talking with them and sitting with this album for a couple months now has taught me, is that a lot of what makes this album so strong is this quietness and this magisterial bass line. So let's hear these different versions and then get on to the next song. I definitely did not expect to get so much time from so many of you. Are you all doing okay? I mean, I see that you're eating, so we're all good here. But wow.
I have to dash
Check
in
the time.
15 minutes.
3 minutes. Last bit of pizza.
Okay, then Tyler, we only have Bread Song, Goodwill Hunting, and Haldern left. Which of those would you like to
Bread
discuss?
Song. Bread
Discuss.
Song.
Okay, tell us about Bread
Like,
Song, Tyler.
I don't know what's my favorite now, but that has been my favorite for the longest period of time. It changes all the time. Bread Song, it's like two bands in the space of one song playing the same song.
Okay.
Like the first chorus is like a small orchestra, and the second is like some twee indie pop band, which is kind of a good example of like the range of things that we're interested in and the range of things that. Well done, Lewis. Well done, Lewis. The way that we recorded the first chorus, you can hear there's no beat at all. That is the most focus that we were all thinking for like the whole of the recording time. That's the most connected that we have to be in the recording process as like humans before being musicians.
Right.
I don't think we would have been capable of that if we weren't best friends that spent a lot of time together and understood one another. We were essentially all following Isaac's movement. It's much more of a movement rather than a melodic piece.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wave rather than a tune. And because of that, because it isn't written to a beat, it just like creates this kind of pure intensity, which was like the main way that we wanted to approach this album, which was to create intensity in different ways that weren't in this post-punk way that we'd done before, that weren't just down to effects on your guitar or like the way that you like thrash really hard. Intensity that is formed through just like the way you hear people moving together and the way that you hear them like connected and developing together. It's so soulful. It's one of the most soulful moments on the album, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely the best we've ever played in the studio as well. We don't always play that well in studios, and I think we've definitely never played our best versions of songs in studios. But in this case, we'd never played a version of a song as good as we did that version of Bread Song in the studio. I don't think there was. I don't think there was any overdubs, not even vocals. Maybe Isaac changed like one little line, but there was no like everything was like just in that room. We just played perfectly together that one time. Yeah, and like Tyler said, you rely so much on other people's movement, and it's not even just the whole time you're looking at Isaac, because I might start getting louder, and then therefore May's got to start getting louder. Georgia might start getting softer, and I've got to compensate for that. So I'm coming down as well, because we're all listening to each other, playing with each other so intensely in that first chorus. So yeah, we never played it. We've never played it that well since, and we've never played it that well.
But you can also really hear. You can really hear the room in that. That was like what made like Bread Song sound really wicked. Like it just that was that first chorus rather, like you can just like even on the way out of that first chorus as well, when the bass drum comes in, you can hear the bass drum like in the room, that you're completely placed inside of it in the way like kind of snaps back from this place where you like you start, and it just like it feels like you can hear every sort of musician just kind of accessing this like this space that we've created. I mean, it just feels like waves, just like it's really sort of washy, and it's just that was such a good take. We like I remember we all we just got it.
That's awesome to hear. So I mean, we haven't even really talked about the room that much. So it's in the Isle of Wight, which I just always think of, Jimi Hendrix played there, and I don't even know where it is, on which coast it even is. So it was like, there's pictures of it in the liner notes and everything, but it's an old abbey. So it's just all stone walls. Is that right? And like wooden beams and.
Yeah. So it's like, it's one of the oldest buildings on the Isle of Wight. That was, so the Isle of Wight, for reference, is like, it's on the southern coast of England.
Okay.
Just below Portsmouth. So you like, and we were on the southernmost tip. Yeah, it was like the studio, yeah, a super old abbey that had been converted by David Grenshaw, who was like, it's amazing that we haven't actually mentioned so far, because he was also like, and I'm sure that Serge will be able to sort of talk about, you know, him in slightly more detail in a second, but like, he basically set up this studio entirely kind of by hand to his like own spec. And we had kind of thought that we knew that we wanted to get away out of the city, out of London, to do this album, and we didn't really know where. And like the obvious sort of like places like Mono Valley and like Rockfield were just like, we didn't really want to do. And so like,
that's not why we didn't do it. We didn't have enough money to play in them.
Yeah, we just didn't really want to do it. It just didn't make sense.
It wasn't right, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it just the vibes were off. Yeah.
we across a body of water.
Yes, we needed across a body of water. Chael Abbey just like was there, and our manager suggested it to us, and it was just like literally perfect. The sound was amazing, and like the room had wonderful like stone walls that were kind of the original walls from the abbey itself, and then the kind of big high ceilings and wooden beams going across it. And so like when Serge was talking earlier about like this sort of the isolated cage that we made for the drums, like that was, you know, the rug was thrown over, you know, the wooden beams,
right? And
so it was like, yeah, it was just a really, really awesome room put together by this like fantastic guy, David.
Handsome, nice,
really guy. Like the missing.
He was all right at his job. He was eye candy basically.
Oh yeah.
What's the story? What's the story with David Grenshaw?
Granshaw. He was. Well, when you go and do like an album, which is something that we've learned after, because we're new to this whole thing as well. It's massive. It's pot luck what your studio engineer is going to be like.
Right.
Could be anyone. Could be like someone you get along with. Could be someone you don't get along with. Could be someone that's really good. Could be someone that's not really good. And we were lucky that this guy David was really good at what he was doing, and really nice and really handsome. So we had to it was just easy.
Lucky.
Exactly. That's the golden trio that you hope for when you find a studio engineer. So obviously, like next to Serge, like you've got to be really handsome. So it was just great, really great. And he's just like brilliant at making shit sound good in that room, because he knows something like the back of his hand. And it was just really lucky to get him, and we actually took him back to London with us. That sounds really creepy in context of me pulling him out. We took him back to London. He didn't know about it at the start. But no, he came to that Fish Factory to help do the mix as well with Serge. And yeah, we just got on really well with him, and it was really, really nice.
But it was most important for Serge and David to get along more than anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like, initially, if you know Serge and David, you might not expect it to go as well as it did.
Serge is a really horrible person.
Yes. So horrible. And David
really
is one of the most peaceful people I've ever met. Serge is fun. I love you, Serge. Serge
loves to stir shit, and he loves to poke people physically and socially poke people. And luckily David was above that and older and was more mature than that. So he didn't mind at all, and he didn't care. He was cool. Just do it. Sergio would be shit stirring while he was just kind of then plugging in another tube amp.
Well, maybe that's going back again to the duality of the album, of the silly and the serious, and
it was
that you
was
needed someone to
David and
counteract.
the David and the Surge.
Yeah.
But do you remember when we start and I get this? I've been really clear and honest. And I say, look, I rely on you a lot because I got the ideas. I know what I want. I know the way that this needs to be sound. I'm gonna complicate our life a lot because we're gonna do this live and we're gonna use all the outboard and we're gonna mix it live with the faders. So really stupid way to approach an album the first time that you're gonna do it, you know. And he said, okay, let's do it. And I remember that when we start mixing, and when you mix Black Country New Road, you don't mix in a normal way that a band's supposed to sound. And he was looking at me like, are you sure? Yeah, that's the way that should be. And after a few days, he got really into it. He understood where everyone was coming from. Because for me and the guys, it was a lock idea. You know, for me, it wasn't surprise about it. You know, for me, it was try to sonically interpret what they did live. So, but for him, it was like completely alien idea because it's not normal. You know, like it's not normal that you do a drums like snow globes.
Right.
You put that drums at that level in the mix. It doesn't make sense, but it does make sense because we're talking about feelings, sonically feelings. You're not talking about how balanced it is, how perfect it is. You know, it's millions of songs in Radio 1 and in the Brits Awards and in everywhere. That's exactly what they do. So that approach for the beginning for him was really difficult to get it, but he got it at the end, and that was great. Sorry, I got.
Oh, it's okay. Serious and the silly again.
Oh.
On that note, I'm actually going to have to leave. I'm terribly sorry.
No, thank you so much for making the time to be here and to add your voice to everything. And
no, it was so nice to meet you. You've been so wonderful to us, and thank you for everything.
My pleasure. It's been a highlight of my channel, this whole thing. So it's the best thing that's come out of doing it. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, have a great night, guys.
Thanks.
See you tomorrow.
I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.
Of course, I want to play you some of the interesting bits from the outtakes from Bread Song, but really I only have one. I only have the May version of Bread Song. I don't have any from June. I don't know if they did any then. Although I do also have some of the rough mix of the final album. So, you know, before they took it to the Fish factory and had it redone there with the beautiful David and the shit-stirring Sergio. And this is what I'm going to try to do. What I find most interesting in the differences is in the May version, Charlie's still trying to find the right sound of drums to play. So as you know, because you know the song well, when he starts like playing, he plays these really kind of like nice sort of like rim shots and very muted snare style sounds, very sort of funky, you know, like that. And if you listen to the earlier version in May, it sounds a lot less like a rim shot, a lot less like a tingy sound. It's a little bit more meaty, and also what he's playing is a little bit more syncopated. It's a little bit more funky. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the May version, and then I'm going to put that right up next to the original mix from the Isle of Wight. And then, and I haven't done this yet, I'm going to try to put the actual album version after. So I'm just going to play from when the drums start, and then I'll repeat the same part a couple times over and over again. I may have to take off the version that is actually from the album. It's going to be like 5 seconds, so I don't think the copyright goblins are going to get me. But if the copyright goblins come to get me, then you will only hear 2 versions and not 3. So let's just celebrate Charlie's drumming and the sound that this room is able to create, and then the sound that they were able to get out of this magical mixing board at the Fish studio. Right, Toby? One more thing before I play it. Later on in the interview, I cut something out where Sergio was describing the real difference between, or how you can really tell the difference between the Fish factory and Chale Abbey in terms of the mixing. And what he really wants to focus on, or what he asks us to focus on, is the vocals. So that's the other thing I want you to listen to here, just the richness of the vocals. He goes kind of a little too into detail, and I lost the thread a little bit of what he was saying. Basically, it's more analog. The effects are more analog in the final version, and it gives it a certain richness and depth. So check that out as well with this comparison between these two different versions, unless I have to remove the second one because of the goblins.
You furnished your suffering, and you played a good organ, and the world gathered singing. Your suffering, and you played a good organ, and the world gathered singing. And you furnished your suffering, and you played a good organ, and the world gathered singing.
Probably because I am not I don't associate your band with live performances. I have less of an attachment to Haldern than maybe other people do, with its origin being at a festival. How would you describe its place on the album?
I love this song. I think this is a great song. And this is a chance for me, May, and Georgia to shine.
Right.
And to for it to be kind of all about us as a three. And we are kind of in many ways like two separate bands. But on this song more than any other song, I think. The whole this is also the first time we've successfully done a song through improvisation. We don't really do that, at least not group improvisation. I'll improvise my parts out usually,
right.
But it's not always. We don't do like big group improvisation to write music, or at least we've tried, but we're not good at it. So we managed to do it, and then I guess because it was out there and because it was recorded and live streamed, there was a bit of like. People feel like they have ownership over us musically anyway,
right?
Let alone when it's already out there. So it was a bit like annoying when people were hearing like the bootlegs of us playing it live and being like, it's nothing like the version on it's like, well, it's not going to be, is it? You sound really affected by that. You know, it's just like a bit stupid, really, like the whole bootleg thing, anyway.
Yeah.
And people get so attached to a certain recording, and it's like that serves you no good to do that. So it's a bit annoying, given that there was kind of a well-recorded version already out there, but we just went really hard with it and like tried to play it the best that we possibly could. Obviously, it'd be stupid if we didn't, but like we really were motivated with that tune to make it this really expressive, very like, here's our statement. This is the micro ensemble within the bands. This is our tune. Like,
right.
We've got to rock it, and it's just a powerful interpretation of that live stream performance, I think.
Yeah,
I didn't mean to sound so rude and annoyed at fans. They're obviously great, but there's just a few of them that get very weird about bootlegs.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's funny because, you know, like I said, I also talk a lot about Kanye, and Kanye has that happen all the time where he releases entire albums and then doesn't record, doesn't release the song, and people get so attached to it and they get so angry. And I always just, I'm a big Star Wars guy, so I always just, if George Lucas says that's what happens, then that's what happens, and you're just gonna have to deal with it, because you're not right. He's George Lucas, and you're just watching George Lucas's movie.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I hear that's interesting, the two different bands in one, and I hear how that really plays off just with your sort of trading off note after note. I think I told the story on the video, but when I was in a band, when I was your guys' age, we tried to improvise an entire show. We played at Mass Art in Boston, and we were just like all in our head, like we're the greatest band in the world and all that stuff. And then we just got up there and we just totally froze. And it was all just like GCD garbage. And then our singer would not stop talking about wizards. It was just like,
cool.
That's pretty dope, to be honest.
So when I think about you performing that song, like I have a special insight into how difficult it is. Even, I mean, we were, 1/10 as successful, as cohesive as you guys were, but still, we practiced a lot and we did it in rehearsal. We improvised songs, but there is something sort of almost unbelievable that song was improvised.
Yeah, I think to us as well, like we've never been able to do it the same or ever like write something half as good as that improvised. We're not great at it and we don't really do it very often. So yeah, just luck on that day that it came out like that.
Haldern's a really good example of the interplay between those, how kind of the guitars and the drums and the bass is kind of, they sit back and kind of rely just on the, on the classic sort of tropes, and the things which sort of come easily to us.
Right.
And just to kind of allow then, the other half of the group to be sort of very experimental and very florid and very expressive, which is, I guess is kind of what has always made the group quite interesting, just as players within the band. Like it's always been very interesting for me, like to kind of see how that works together and how everyone kind of like splits off slightly and how things are written almost like in little pairs or threes. It's cool. And
then so Sergio, so you are also their live engineer. So had you heard the song when it was first played as well?
No. I had that is when we did the first session. It was my favorite song. I was like blown away. I like a lot avant-garde and I like a lot of concrete music. So I felt like that is absolutely beautiful. I couldn't wait to record and mix. I felt like it was my son when we were mixing. Because I was just getting up really early in the morning and go and start working in that song. So when they come in later, I knew exactly how to make it sound good. And I felt that it's my favorite song of the album as well. The interaction between the rock part of the band and the kind of the most like classical part of the band. That's a way that I work with them when I do in the live sound and when I'm mixing the album. If I got a good lock between the piano, the violin and the sax, and I got a good lock between drums, bass and guitar, it's really easy to make them, to put them together. And that song is like that. The same that the intro was like, I made a mix of the drums and bass and guitar and a mix of the other instruments. And that's when you put them together, it just work. But Haldern is just, for me, it's the most beautiful song I ever heard. It's absolutely amazing. The piano part, when May play the piano in the background, I'm still thinking about that. Sometimes I go kind of, oh, that should be even louder, because it's such a beautiful scene. It's insane, it's pop music, but at the same time, it's music. That's it, the scene, how I feel about the album. This album is about music, and that's what makes great albums great. And that, for me, Haldern is a perfect example how a song that is weird and quirky and it's an improvisation could be absolutely beautiful. Better than any number one talking about "I love you, baby," because the feeling is there.
No,
Charlie, all about "I love you, baby." By the way,
I love you, baby. Oh, the kids are listening to these days.
Yeah,
it's running old.
Talking about the templates. What is a template in music at the moment? Is every song sounds exactly the same. Every song goes for the same effect, for the same kind of crescendo, going out, in and out. The same stupid effects in the vocals that everyone is using it now. Since Cher, like same, like so boring. And the feeling is like they try to sell you a feeling about "I love you, baby, baby, I love you," but the feeling that you get with this song in particular is unique, and you can be, if you train the ears of people, this song could be a #1 in any kind of mainstream radios.
Right. Did you know that he felt this way about the song?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's weird.
Okay.
Well, it's kind of a bit weird.
I mean, I originally wanted this track to be the first single from the album.
Right.
Yeah.
But I was like, based off of what Serge had sort of said, and based off of how I felt about it, I kind of like thought it was like the best bridge from like album 1 and album 2.
Mm-hmm.
And also just I really like the track. But yeah, no, I didn't know. Yeah, I think we all sort of knew how Serge sort of felt about the track, just because he's not, he's got a terrible poker face, and and he also very rarely, I know it's weird, he very rarely says how he feels, to us or or to anyone. So like it was it was tough to break him down, so he'd finally tell us what he thought about the music.
I don't know if there's anyone that I know who keeps their cards further away from their chest.
Facing the wrong way.
No, we love you for it, Serge.
So I only have one demo. That's the one from the May session, the one which I believe Sergio was talking about, and the one that moved him so much and that he felt so connected to. And kind of a funny thing happened this morning. I'm editing here and coming down to the wire. I'm releasing this in 2 days. Hopefully my computer will cooperate. But while I've been listening to the original demo and then the album version, I feel like I finally get it. I mean, I've always liked this song, but as you can see from my interview a couple months ago, I'm kind of like, not my favorite song. But oh my God, like listening to the demo and then listening to the final version, like I see it. Like I feel like I really understand the song. I really understand this space, these two bands working together. So I cannot wait to share with you the slight and fascinating differences between the May version and the version that's on the album. So first of all, it starts off with what I believe to be Isaac. I mean, I have British accent deafness, so it might be May for all I know, saying, "Is everyone ready? Say yeah!" And everyone in the band says yeah. And it's really fun because they're all getting pumped up to play a very chilled out song, a very lugubrious song, my word of the day. But then when it starts, it's great because a casual listener might just kind of go, "Oh yeah, it's basically the same thing," but it's so different. And really what it is that the original, the version in May, instead of it really being an interaction between the saxophone and the piano, as it is on the final version, it's between the saxophone and a plucked violin. So the dynamics are very different, and it leaves it feeling, because part of what makes the song so interesting, I think, is the sort of the coldness of the strings and the richness of the saxophone, and then the sort of piano underneath it all. So having the saxophone and the piano in the final version is just much warmer. So I'm going to play you the opening bit. You're going to hear how the saxophone is a lot less relaxed. Lewis is kind of hitting the notes earlier. There's a lot less space. That's the main thing that I'm getting the sense of what made Chael Abbey so special and what made these recordings so special, is I just keep coming back to that word of space. And you're going to hear in these May demos, just everything's a little bit more compact. It's a little bit tighter. It's a little bit just like kind of get to the point, which this is a song which is not about getting to the point. So I'm going to play you a little bit of the beginning. I'm also going to play you a little bit of like the beginning of the singing, and Isaac is definitely a lot more sort of croonery on these bits. Like he's doing a lot more, and I think on the final version it works a lot better. There's a little bit more restrained, but still it's nice to hear these great lyrics with this sort of different style of emphasis. And then finally I'll just play the end, which is a lot less exciting. So in the final version it ends with a did it, and the May version, the did it's are a little bit less did it. That was me searching for the word, and then I just landed on did it. Okay, let's listen to a little bit of the May demo for Haldern. God damn, this is a good song.
Like it's live, this is the one. Like it's live. This is the one. Like it's live, that's the bit. Like it's live, this is live. Alright, everyone give me a yeah! 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 Okay. Woo! Yeah!
So as you know, being music fans, it's hard to have a favorite song off of an album, because especially if you love an album, it changes all the time. So my current favorite song is Good Will Hunting. In a way, I felt that Good Will Hunting was more of the bridge between the first album and this one, just in the sense that it has a little bit more of that kind of post-punk feeling, just with the guitars. When I play the album for people the first time, which it's very frustrating, because you just have to tell them, like, you're going to love this album, but you just have to just 1 second, just 1 second. And I always start with Good Will Hunting, and that usually ends up being the easiest sort of on road for everybody.
Yeah, well, we wrote it. It was one of the ones that was written before like the bulk of the songs from the album. So like we had Snow Globes and we had Basketball Shoes, and then like they had kind of sort of been like a bit, we'd like thought about them for quite a while. And then Good Will Hunting came like maybe just after that, and we performed it I think twice before lockdown happened. So we
I think it was just once, wasn't it?
So we recorded it, we played it in Oslo, and then we also played it in Sheffield at the Picture House, because there is a bootleg of us playing it at the Picture House.
Oh, well, no, we played loads of these songs then, didn't we?
Yeah, I guess so.
That was on the Socially Distanced tour.
No, in January of 2020. But I have no memory of it whatsoever. Literally got no memory of it, but apparently we did.
Shit,
so,
wow.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some people on the Reddit forum watching this now being like, I could share the file with you.
It's the best one. Yeah.
They never did anything close to that good again.
Yeah. Just the energy is just a bit different. Do you know what I mean?
Through the iPhone as well, you just get you get a better sort of idea of what the band actually sound like.
It feels a bit more live. Yeah.
So now that there's no guitarists on the call, in one of the versions, there's like an Allman Brothers style outro with just the two guitars playing. Is that get an early axe? Was that later, or what?
You know what? That was not talked about at all. It was just there, and then it wasn't there. No one was ever like, we should take that out. We should take that out. It was just out, and then it was back when we were playing it live.
Yeah,
it was just a bit of a Dude, no, it wasn't even discussed that it was there in the first place as well. It was just like the end of the song. And it's like, and we were like, yeah, cool, like the ending, that's funny. And then it just wasn't there when we were getting down to business. And then,
I think that's my biggest regret on the album of not having that original ending in.
Really?
Because I think it's because I kind of thought that people, I do sort of remember us taking it out and being like, okay, fair enough. Because I remember being so worried about this whole album thing. I thought that people were really, there were going to be like quite a significant number of people who just were going to hate it, of our like original fans. We thought that it was going to be like, divisive, because I think a lot of our fans, or we thought that our fans sort of saw us as these like quite like serious musicians that like do things that are like really angular and weird and like aggressive, and if we kind of like were making songs like Good Will Hunting with that original ending that was just again kind of a bit funny, I think I thought that like that people were just gonna like completely switch off to it, or not even switch off, just be like, this just sucks. And it's a massive regret now that we didn't keep that on, because I think it's awesome. It's really wicked.
Yeah, that and everyone doing a solo on Chaos Space Marine.
Yeah, that is true.
Well, those will both be on this video with your permission, so people can at least hear what. It's funny when talking about your, about the negative reaction, and it seems to me that the only time I ever hear people say things bad about you and your new album, it's in relationship to Black Midi. And so I think that there's like a certain expectation, a sort of, I mean, I hate to use the word toxic, but a kind of like toxically masculine sort of like performance precision thing that they're able to capture, and that I think they incorrectly put onto your band because of the, some of the precision and the time changes and all that stuff on the first album. So I think you're much better off. I mean, I like Black Midi too, but I think you're much better off losing the fans who want you to be more like Black Midi, because I think that they should be them and that you should be you. I don't know, at least that's the way I see it, because like no one says anything bad about you in my comment section unless it's someone like should have been Black Midi, which is just like yeah,
you get that, don't you? It's weird. I think like I would probably be more annoyed by it if I cared about those kind of guys that say that kind of stuff. It's only ever this very certain type of like white male, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, go on then, mate.
Yeah.
It's like the thing is, like, we're friends with that band.
Of course, yeah.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't really matter. Like, we'll just do what we're doing. That's fine. The whole reception thing, I've definitely seen some of that. People going like, well, it's an cavalcade,
Right.
And it's like, yeah, no, it's not like that. It's not like
definitely
that.
Definitely not.
But yeah, I think I wasn't worried about how it was going to go down. I just was predicting that it would go down way worse than it did.
Right.
I thought it was going to be, I was really confident in it and I loved it. As soon as it was done, I was like, I absolutely love this album. If someone released this album, I would listen to it loads and really love it. And so I was just thinking, like, people aren't going to like it, but I won't really mind too much because I know that it's great. And in a few years, they'll be like, this is great. They just released it so soon after their first album that it was too much of a change. But like, what do you know? It's like been an amazing reception. It's been incredible. And we never expected to have this, like, this warm reception to it. It's been unbelievable. It's been so cool.
It's every once in a while something will happen where you just feel like maybe people don't have as bad taste as we assume, and I think that's a good case here. I think, like the Beatles were able to just completely change and everyone was just like, okay, this is what's good now. I mean, there's no real guarantee. And I mean, obviously Radiohead as well, I mean, I remember seeing them in 2001 and, 4 years after they changed the world to OK Computer and all that. And everyone was just sitting around there dancing their heads off to all the bleeps and bloops and all that. And I'm like, how are they filling up like an entire stadium after completely slapping all their fans in the face and saying, we're different now. And either you love George Lucas or you don't, And the fact that people have followed you, it really is heartening to me that there's so little negative feedback. And yeah, I mean, I guess it's just part of what this interview has shown is this confluence of these like slightly different influences, like the silly and the serious and the two different parts of the bands. And I think Sergio also in his describing his aesthetic of thinking about artists like Neil Young, like bringing Neil Young into this equation is quite interesting in the sort of British post-punk and all that kind of thing. It seems very kind of off. Were you also like, when he would talk to you about Neil Young, would you just be sort of like whatever, or were you sort of following him along, or were you just sort of letting him have that in his mind?
Neil Young, who's that? No,
I don't know. I haven't seen him. I've tried to search Spotify. I can't find him anywhere.
I never talked to them about Neil Young because that was my study. That was my approach. Sorry.
That's all right.
So that
it makes the video way better, by the way, to have a little kid running around. He's way more interesting than the rest of us. So.
Oh, not me, definitely. But it was that for me that was my sonic approach. Right. That not necessarily I have to tell them what I was going for. For me, the main thing is that they will agree with the final result. Because for me, you know, like we were talking Beach Boys, Pet Sound, definitely. But for example, with Charlie in Good Will Hunting, I talk a lot about Soft Bulletin by Flaming Lips.
Yeah, I remember that a lot.
And I won that drum sound.
Yeah.
And you remember, Charlie, we work a lot. So we put some distortions that is really subtle distortion on the drums that's there just to create that kind of sparkles in the cymbals. And it's a beautiful like the drum sounds in the sub-volatile. And so the influences, you know, it's always changed, but but going back to Neil Young, for me, the beauty and the organic sound of On the Beach, for example, that was my goal.
Right. Well, yeah, and I think that's I was just kind of curious because when you said it to me, it made a lot of sense. Because when I first heard the songs, I thought of a lot of Neil Young's mid-70s albums, which, I mean, what you recorded is a lot less rough, but it has that same vitality. So I was wondering if you were communicating that to them, but it sounds like you didn't even need to, that they were just totally on board with making this kind of vital thing.
Yeah, that's the idea that they you know, as I said before, I just, for me, I'm the person. It's like the same when they play live. It's always a teamwork, and what my job is to, whatever happens on the stage, bring it up in volume, and people can hear what's going on. In this case, it's different because it's gonna be there forever.
Right.
But the kind of the organic part, the sound, the respect for the songs, for the studio, for the gear, for the microphones, for the ambient, I think that is something that we talk in advance and we agree to go on that way.
One more demo to play for you. And that's one of my favorites, which is the June demo of Good Will Hunting. I already inserted the double guitar in the May version, which was already gone by June, sadly enough. But this demo, I don't know, there's so much charming to it. First of all, Isaac's lyricism and Isaac's singing on this is some of my favorite of the album. And at the beginning, I'll play you as he starts singing it, and then he gets it wrong. He just kind of yells, and the rest of the band laughs. And it's that kind of nice, easy sound that they have when they're just trying to find things, and just how easy they are with each other comes through. And I'm going to play you a couple other bits. So first of all, like the backup vocals that are provided that make the sort of pre-chorus work so well, they're just not there. And it's a real reminder of how well produced the final version is. But the thing that interests me the most is the background. There's this sort of, speaking of background, sorry, my wife's cutting up an apple. There's this like piano echo sound that happens at a certain point in the final version, but it's louder here. And it's a little texture that I didn't pay enough attention to when I listened to the actual album. But hearing this demo helps to really bring it out. So let's listen to all these little bits from Good Will Hunting, the June version, and then get to the end of the video with some surprise guests.
Ready? You walk up on the... Sorry. You walk up on the raised edge, your hands out for balance. Slipping, you almost grab mine, but you find your feet. And I never wanted so much someone to fall. You call, I'll be there. What's more, I'm scared of the phone.
Is there anything else that you wish we had touched on, or any other details? You didn't get to talk about your snare sound, Sergio. So I don't know if you want to talk about your snare sound.
No, that's fine. That's something that I for me it always was a teamwork. all the time. But apart from the team, I was really, really into every person that they're happy with the sounds that we were getting. Right. And I was playing, can we do this? But I want this for a reason. And with Charlie, we talk a lot about drum sounds. And every bass drum is different. So for example, I have like we got 3 mics in the bass drum, plus we have a PA on the venue, on the studio. So we have a PA in there, so they can feel. So they were playing, and I send the bass drum or some instrument. I send it back to the studio, so they feel it. Right. So they got involved in that, no? And from that PA, that sub that we go in there, we who's that?
Holy shit.
That was a neat trick.
What's going on here?
You guys having beers in yours?
Might go to the Boogaloo in a bit. Do you want to come?
Yeah, I'll come for a drink.
Okay.
How are you? Nice to meet you, Professor.
Nice to meet you.
But basically, the only thing I want to say is thank you, Black Country New Road.
Yeah.
Thank you, Serge.
Thank you, Serge.
That is the only thing. It's nothing else, to be honest, because it's like, honestly, it's the best thing that happened to me.
Yeah, well,
Back on my cat, in order that I told you yesterday. My first cat, Paco. My son, Nico, Black Country New Road.
That wasn't the order that it was in yesterday.
Number one was the cat. Yesterday.
Number 1 was the cat, yeah.
Yeah, but number 2 wasn't Nico.
Free drinks. You know what happened with free bar? You know, you forget stuff.
Well, now that there's
that amazing is just say thank you for trusting me. Nothing else.
Thank you for.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I don't think it would have made sense with anyone else doing it. And like, every single album is kind of like a new sort of venture, and like, we wanted to do something new, and it's always more fun to do something new with someone that, you know, like, is doing something for the first time as well. And you know, that's kind of like, and Serge was sort of exactly that, having never done an album before. So yeah. It was cool.
It was great. There was a youthful naivety in Serge's production from his inexperience in production that gave it real raw, beautiful energy.
That's true.
I mean, straight off the dome. So they call me Dr. Evans.
That's right.
Thank you, Professor Skye.
I don't need to be here. I mean, you could just, you'll Professor Skye it up. And great. Well, any other, I mean, now that there's some more people around, any more closing anecdotes or thoughts? I will say, Lewis, that the video of you guys all playing football with the dog, you come across looking very good, because you're the only one who made sure that the dog could actually play with the ball a little bit. And so
I'm the most compassionate member of the band. and the only member of the band that doesn't eat meat as well.
Oh, okay. Wow,
this is complete bullshit.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Every evening, Lewis would have just abstained by the side whilst we had a hog roast.
Wow.
I would stand in a corner of the room. I'd stand in a corner of the room and cry and weep.
Yes.
And sing kind of comforting songs to myself.
Just singing "Meat is Murder" over and over again.
At the disgusting atrocity of them eating it. And then I go and play with the dog and kind of run around in the grass barefoot with it, rewinding. Sorry, it's been a long interview. My head.
It has been a super long. I didn't, I expected to talk to Sergio for like 20 minutes. Instead, I get the entire band for 2.5 hours. So it's not I'll have a lot of fun editing this up. But
there's a really interesting anecdote about when we watched Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl.
We got quite drunk in the main room at night time and watched about 10-15 minutes of Pirates of the Caribbean and all fell asleep.
Yeah.
Wow. All together, all asleep.
Hold up at all.
No.
I know it was just me, Isaac, Luke, and Lewis. But and then we watched the opening scene from The Dark Knight Rises. Yeah, which was actually better than all of Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Did you talk about the time that we went down to the cliffs and we sang that song?
Oh yeah,
let's hear it.
I've got a recording of that on my phone.
Have you got your phone here now?
I got a new phone.
Oh shit.
there was like a massive thunderstorm. Actually, no, Lee, you can tell the story. I've spoken.
Oh no, go ahead, Charlie. Take it away. You're in speaking mode. I'll stumble over my words.
Oh, fair enough. There was a massive thunderstorm. Actually, like the whole week, like was sort of like punctuated by these like huge storms. And there was one of them on one of the evenings, and we were just kind of having like the night off, and we were down at the pub, and the cliff's edge was like a 10-minute walk away from the studio, and we just thought that it would be kind of fun to go and wander down to the cliffs. So it was like pitch black in the most like torrential rain I think I've ever been in. The lightning was just like massive, and it was like
the pub had been like, don't do it.
Yeah, please,
like, you really want to go and see the ocean, they're like, you won't be able to see it and it's extremely dangerous.
Yeah, no, because like we were like walking over and we didn't really know where the cliff's edge was.
They were like, down there and wait, and we were like,
I remember Serge saying, "Do it when you finished recording."
Yeah.
If you're gonna die after recording the album.
That's a good producer.
Yeah. But we did it anyway.
Yeah, and we were just like chanting to each other. It was great. Got a lot of material for album 3. Brainstorming.
We got pretty pagan with it.
Yeah.
It's like the wizards coming back again.
And the gods of rice and shit like that.
Just mostly grain-based kind of
grain-based deities.
Yeah, that's it. That's all the fun that we had that week.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, yeah, I think so. That's a lot more than I expected to get, and I really appreciate it. And it's been fun here at the end, having the whole friendship thing. It really does come through, and it really does matter in the music. And I don't think I can join you guys. I'm kind of 6 hours away by 4 hours away by Concorde, so I can't really join you.
We'll see America at some point.
Yeah, well, I hope so.
The Boogaloo is open late though, so you could probably make it left out.
You fancy getting around to Highgate? There's a pretty decent pub that's quite expensive and looks like it shouldn't be as expensive as it is. We're going there tonight.
Okay, well that's good. If I ever make it there, I'll see if you're there. Great.
Right.
Well, thank you all so much. I'll edit this all together and put in little clips, and this is a real treat for me, but really a real treat for the fans to get to see this attempt at the liner notes for the box set of your album. So
exactly. Thanks very much, Scott.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Support, man.
Yeah,
nice to meet you. Sorry to meet you.
We are all massive fans as well. I don't I said that. Really love your video.
We found you.
What's that?
We found your video somehow before you did the first album review, I think, and me and Lewis were watching them or something. Or me and Isaac did that.
Yeah. What were we
like ages ago. It was like a shame review or something like that, I think. And we somehow found it. Oh shit, he's doing us. Yeah. It's great.
Oh, that's very flattering. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Time to boogie.
Thank you.
Bye.